The purpose of this podcast is simple. We want you to get to know your doctor before meeting them in person, because you're making a life-changing decision and time is scarce. The more you can learn about who your doctor is before you meet them, the better that first meeting will be. There's no substitute for an in-person appointment, but we hope this comes close. I'm your host, Eva Shea, and you're listening to Meet the Doctor. Welcome to Meet the Doctor. Today, my guest is Dr. Douglas Steinbrech. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Steinbrech?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. It's nice to talk with you today. I am a board-certified plastic surgery specializing in aesthetics, and particularly aesthetics for men. That's my interest. That's we started doing it about 10 years ago, and we found that we have a great patient population. There's a demand for it, and these poor guys have never had the right techniques or the right surgeons doing what they need to have. So we decided to completely focus it. It's completely changed my practice. It's completely changed my practice base. It's completely changed my life and my life for my family. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about that.
Any kind of man, a specific type of man, a specific age? Is it even more focused than just men or just any man?
It's all men, but this is a great thing about it, is we have it to the different, what I call iconotypes. So if you go to my website, and there's a maleplasticsurgery.com, that's the main website, but then we also have one for New York, Chicago, and LA. But when you go to it, right away, you get an opportunity to pick what type that you want to be. So we have 5 different iconotypes. We have the male model, we have the daddy next door, we have the executive, we have the bodybuilder, and then we have it's sort of a play on the Biggest Loser. We have the Biggest Winner, somebody that's lost a lot of weight. And what you can do is men like to just get right to it, and they just want to click on the one that agrees with what they're looking for. And once you press that button, then it goes right to another area of the website that says these are most likely the procedures of improvement that you'd be looking for. And that cuts right through everything, because then it really helps patients. They know what kind of person they are, and it helps them find what they're looking for immediately.
It's really smart. Why 3 cities? Why not just one city? What prompted you to move into three big markets?
Well, we noticed, I've been in practice since 2004, and I started on Park Avenue in New York like everyone else. And I noticed that there were so many people. I thought I had great training, even wrote a textbook, but there were so many people that were doing exactly what I was doing. And I had a lot of buddies that wanted to have, a little bit of liposuction or have their abs done. And we noticed that there was a demand there, and we started doing more and more and more, and my team got really good at doing it. And so there was one key moment in time where my patient coordinator, she said, you know what, Dr. Steinbrech, you need a patient education website, a website that caters to men or educates men, because there's no one else that had that. So we made that website, and boom, it went viral. That's when everything happened. That's when I went from doing 15% men up to 85% men in New York. In LA, 100%, and in Chicago, about 95%. And why did we go into different cities? Because we saw that the number 2 market, or people that really wanted this and weren't getting it, was in Los Angeles. And why did we go to Chicago? Because in Chicago, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Iowa. Hello, Solon, Iowa, right between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. I grew up there, and I know how Midwesterns think, because I'm Midwestern, and we all think in the Midwest, if you can't find it in the Midwest, then it's not worth getting. So they will go to Mayo, they'll go to Chicago, and that's why I went to Chicago. People in New York or LA, they'll fly all over the world to find the right person to do it, but Midwesterners want to stay local. So we knew we kind of had a captive audience, a group of people that needed these services, but they wanted them to be brought to them. And so that's why we went in. But the real thing is what I want to do is build something. We're building these other cities and then putting other surgeons in to help us to make great teams and create really 3 centers of excellence nationally for men's plastic surgery. So you have, wherever you are in the country, you have one regional area that you can go to. Now, as things continue to expand, we may go into Miami, Dallas, San Francisco, and then other more regional sub areas. But for now, we want 3 centers of excellence. We want to just always focus on quality, and that's why we went to those 3 places.
Let's go back to Iowa for a second.
Yeah.
I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, that's great. I thought it was pronounced Minnesota.
It used to be. When I was younger. That's how we said
I'm
it.
just teasing.
So, you grew up in Iowa?
Yes.
And then how did you get out of Iowa?
So I was in Iowa, and I went to undergrad at the University of Iowa and the medical school there. And I really loved it. But during that period of time, I did some research at the NIH. So that's in Maryland, in Washington, D.C., really. And one of my doctors said, he was this really smart guy, Steve Rosenberg. He was head of the Cancer Institute, the National Cancer Institute, and head of the surgery branch. And he said, Doug, he said, you can always go back to Iowa, but if you're going to do your training, you just need to have a little hybrid vigor. You need to he said, go left or right, which means go to the East Coast, go to the West Coast. There are a lot of great institutions in the Midwest, but you just need to go back to the Midwest and bring something back. So I took that advice to heart. I really interviewed all over the country, and I just loved NYU. It has an incredible plastic surgery reputation. It's really one of the top places for plastic surgery and aesthetic plastic surgery in particular. And I was lucky enough to train there. Then I ended up having so many friends in New York, I just never got back to Iowa.
That's how it happens.
But I love it. Iowa gave me great values. The Midwest gave me great values. It gave me this work ethic that there's no way that I would have been able to do the things that our team has been able to do if I didn't have that work ethic, and I attributed that to the Midwestern values.
Do you still go back there ever? Are your parents there?
Yeah, we lost my father, sadly, but my mother is still there, and my family, a lot of my brothers and sisters actually moved back to Iowa sort of to be with the family, and I do go back. But most times I try and get them to come out to New York and see us out at the beach in Long Island.
Which beach?
East Hampton.
My dad's from Uniondale.
Yeah, sure. I know that.
Long Beach.
Yep.
So.
It's great.
Okay, so you land in New York. You've decided you're going to do something completely different, and you hit on something. You said it was your website. So what year was that? If it was your website that went viral?
Made the website in 2014. So it's almost been 10 years, and we've been in LA for 7 years now, Chicago for 3 years.
Was there a social media aspect to that explosiveness?
Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, we started on Facebook because Instagram really hadn't caught on then. And then once Instagram happened, that was a huge dynamic because it also was a huge part of the reason why more men are having plastic surgery now is because they never used to see their friends from high school until the 25th year reunion. Now they're seeing their friends every single day, and everyone's keeping tabs of everyone else. And they also see a lot of different things because on Instagram, you're looking around the world, and they'd start to see guys. It used to be the only time a guy would take off his shirt would play like shirts and skins, play basketball. Other than that, you'd never see it except on underwear models. Now guys are going to the gym, they're taking off the shirts, they're flexing in front of the mirror in the locker room, and everybody's showing their abs, they're showing their chest, they're showing these body parts and their face. And they weren't doing that before. And now it's a lot more of a visual thing. And guys are seeing this and they want to stay fit. And that has created a huge demand for men's plastic surgery in the last 5-10 years.
What kinds of photos do you post on Instagram?
Progress photos, so mainly before and after photos, but a lot of times there are videos about our procedures that we do. And then many times it can just be a testimony from the patients about how they're, so happy with the result. So, and then we have some kind of fun staff things where staff will ask me questions or I answer questions for patients, all those things. It's all about education for, for a prospective patient or for patients that we've had all along.
Are there specific procedures that you see come back over and over and over?
Yeah, I started a couple of things. One's called body banking, and that is sort of what I'm known for. Everybody knows a lot of people know what a BBL is. So it's this like a gluteal augmentation that a lot of women have done, or Brazilian butt lift. Now it's sort of debatable whether or not it's appropriate to use the words Brazilian butt lift, but it's still in the sort of common vernacular. But I did something a little different. Instead of putting all that fat in the glutes, I took all that fat and I isolated the cells for structure and volume and injected them into the dude's shoulders, the anterior lateral posterior deltoid, up in the trapezoid region, so they have a nice thick muscular neck, and into the chest, upper inner chest. And then we can put it anywhere else. We can put it in the glutes, but not a Kardashian kind of thing. We keep it more centrally located, very athletic, or we can put it into your quads, your calves, your biceps. We can put it wherever you want it. So that's been a game changer, because if you don't do body banking, if you don't put those cells into another desired area, if you only do liposuction, number one, aesthetically, you're designing a surgery where you're only doing half the surgery. So as a patient, you're only getting half your money's worth, because the whole power of changing your shape is not just by subtraction and addition. Does a artist who has a lump of clay, does he just take the clay away and put it in a bucket? No, that clay is valuable. He doesn't waste a drop of it. He takes that clay and he puts it back somewhere else. So by subtraction and addition, that artist, that sculptor, can make a more artistic, more athletic look if he's making a male. And I can do the same thing, but instead of the clay, my clay are the fat cells. And now I can do a more complete job, give superior results, versus Dr. Johnson down the street that just does liposuction, sucks out a little bit from your love handles and sends you on your way. And the other thing about this, Eva, is if you don't bank, we call it banking the fat, if you don't bank them somewhere else, then you will, guaranteed, it's not a myth, you will get rebound fat in other undesired areas. Usually it's visceral fat, inner outer thighs, other areas. So we're setting up an insurance policy. So we say guilt-free, after a year, you go and enjoy that bread with dinner or enjoy that dessert. And you can even have a beer. And don't feel guilty about those carbs. Those carbs are making your shoulders wider. They're giving more definition and making your traps pop. But they're also not going to come back as visceral fat or I call it catch fat, compensatory adipotrophic cellular hypertrophy. All that fancy mumbo jumbo just means rebound fat, leftover fat cells that you couldn't get with the liposuction because we're not allowed to pop the cannula intra-abdominally. Those fat cells are going to compensatorily get larger after surgery unless you bank the fat cells on the outside where they take up the carbohydrates that come afterwards. It really works, and that's why we're doing so much of this in 3 different cities.
It seems like fat is starting to become better used in plastic surgery. There's a lot of people working on this and getting better at it all the time. I assume you're one of those people.
Fat is such a power. I just gave a lecture today, and I said, all of you out there, in these days, in these times, if you're not utilizing, Neva, only once, and I just got done saying this in this lecture, only once or twice a year do I have patients that I don't put it somewhere just because they just don't get it. They refuse to believe it. They have it locked in their head. Fat equal bad. Fat need to go. Even though I tell them you may get rebound fat, you may get catch fat. You're not going to like it. I don't care. I don't get fat gone. Fat need to leave. So unfortunately, once or twice I do, and I don't get a better result because I can't edit it back in to give them these beautiful shoulders or traps or whatever, chest. But I told people in this lecture, and I tell people in all the lectures that I give, that they're cheating their patients. They are only doing half of the case. They're only giving their patients half of the value. And all that I call it gold, because when you suck out the fat, you've probably seen on either YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Male Plastic Surgery, or on my Instagram, Male Plastic Surgery. you see when the fat comes out, it's beautiful liquid gold. So we call that gold. So you're just throwing that gold away, and you're depriving the patient of having the best result that they can have, and the best result they can have for the rest of their life. Because this is a key thing. This is another important metabolic thing that people don't think about it. All they think about is mechanical, suck out the fat, that's it. There's a whole lot of biochemistry and physiology involved. In Mother Nature, what she does, she's a little bit cruel, but she's doing it to do you a favor. When you turn 56 years old, a man, she turns down the testosterone, she turns up the estrogen because she wants to turn on those hormonal receptors that have more fat survive. That's for cavemen. We're not cavemen anymore, but that was for Grandpa. Grandpa was a caveman. In caveman times, Grandpa was 35 years old. That was Grandpa, right? Grandpa's supposed to stick around the cave, right? As when the guy goes out and he gets a deer or a bear, drags it back and cooks the food. Caveman first is going to eat that, right? He's going to give it to his wife, then the kids, so they can breastfeed the kids. The last people to get fed are the two old people over in the corner. They're 35, 40 years old, Grandma and Grandpa. But Mother Nature turned up the estrogen, so both of them are going to have a lot more fat so that they can survive the winter and babysit while the caveman runs out and catches another deer. That's all the way we're built, but we don't live in caves anymore, so we don't do that. But that's the way it's engineered. So whether you like it or not, Mother Nature's going to, for the men, is going to turn down the testosterone, up in the estrogen. You're going to lose muscle mass. But because I've banked the fat into these desired areas, as she turns up the estrogen, I always tell my patients, when you're 60, 70 years old, your shoulders are going to get a little bit bigger, and they're going to replace the muscle loss that you suffer because of the lack of testosterone. It's also going to be the same for the traps, for the chest. And you're going to write me a thank you now that this stuff really, really worked. We get immediate benefit, but it continues to be the gift that continues to give and follows you accordingly with the changes that you have in your metabolism and your hormonal levels. It really works.
I recently heard from another plastic surgeon that he could tell by the quality of someone's fat what their health was like. Have you seen this?
Yeah, you can. If people just have really oily, sort of greasy fat, that may be an indication that their tissues just aren't as robust. Or nutritionally, this is another thing that I harp on, is people have to be really well carb loaded as they go into surgery. And that's when we get really beautiful plump cells that make a higher percentage of survival. Like you always hear these stories of the woman, oh, I went and got my BBL, I got my Brazilian butt lift, and all the fat went away. Well, yeah, the fat went away because either the doctor didn't know how to process it properly, or he or she didn't know how to inject it properly. But a lot of times it's because you went home and you starved yourself because you thought, okay, I'm going to go cold turkey. I'm just going to stop eating because I just had plastic surgery. Absolutely 100%, 180% the wrong thing to do. After you had surgery, you need to carb up as much as you can to prevent problems with the wounds falling apart, with infections, with fluid collections. That's one thing. But the other thing is all those good cells that got put in your backside, or for the men that I do, in the chest, shoulders, and the traps, that gets eaten away. It gets cannibalized because your body is trying to use that energy to survive and heal the other places. So I make everyone carb up for a full 28 days afterwards. And I tell them, look, you can go on a low carb, modified low carb, keto diet, paleo diet, a hunger strike. But it's got to be after 28 days, after everything's all healed up.
You're not telling them to overeat. You're just telling them to eat a specific way.
Yeah, I'm telling them to eat a little bit over with the carbs because they're going to need your body needs so much. I tell my patients, you are running a New York Marathon every single day, just sitting still, because that's how much energy that you need to be able to repair your tissues. You had liposuction. They don't realize it. They think when they had I do a torso tuck. You know, the rest of people do a tummy tuck. I do a torso tuck, which goes all the way around. That's 360 torso tuck, or 2/3 around. That's a 270 torso tuck. So when we do that, we're tucking the shirt into the pants, because guys usually have a really nice butt, good legs. But the problem is they have this muffin top. We have to tuck it in. For women, it's a lot of times they need to pull things up. For us, it's more tucking it down. But when we do this, they think that they see, and all they see is an incision. Well, guess what? Underneath the full body, we did 360, which means 360 all the way around your body. We did liposuction, which creates inflammation and even healing tissue all the way around. but you don't see it, so you don't think it's there. That takes so much energy for that to repair. So that takes a lot of nutrition. So I really get on people about being good with the carbs, and it makes a huge difference.
Can you help people who are overweight with what you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of when people come in and they are overweight, a lot of times what we can do is we can shift around the fat that we have if they're moderately. If they're morbidly overweight, then we talk to them about, for the safety of the surgery and for the safety of anesthesia, we talk about them losing weight, and that could be 50, 100 pounds, but we do it with them. We have a weight loss specialist that can help them, and we don't lose track of them. A lot of times you go in plastic surgeon's office and like, sorry, you're too big and you're just not a candidate. So go home and lose the weight and then try coming back in a couple of years. We don't do that. We develop a plan, and because that also gives them hope. So we treat you just like you'd be ready for surgery. We give you a plan as a goal, and we give you what's called our body banking roadmap. We have a color chart of all the places we're sucking out and all the places you want to put it in. So you get to design with our people your unique, tailored result. And you may be 100 pounds overweight, but we're going to do that with you because you had a consultation with us, and that's what we're here to deliver with you. And also, when we give that piece of paper to you, we're going to give it to you, and we're going to have you put it on your refrigerator, and you use that as a goal. And we tell people, we'll give them some of our before and after photos of people that have lost the weight. And then we've done body banking. I don't want them to lose it all because I like to use that fat and put it in good places. So don't lose it all. But they get down to once a point of safety, and I've had some people that I had one guy that never went to the gym, and I took out all the fat, and he's probably like, 30 pounds overweight, but it was still within the range of being safe to do surgery. I took out all that fat. I put it all in his shoulders, his chest, and we had a lot, so I loved it. It was so great, and it made such a huge difference for him. We put it in his chest, shoulders, traps. That's a triple play. But then I had more. I had left over because he had such an ample supply that we got some in his glutes, we got some in his calves, we got some in his biceps, and he had a total torso transformation. And he went from looking like a guy never worked out and like a chubby kind of hefty guy to looking not necessarily like a ripped bodybuilder, but he looked like a weightlifter. He looked like he was very strong. And the great thing about it that I love, number one, he started going to the gym because it inspired him. Because he's like, wow, this is what I could look like. Now I'm going to start doing it. So he's building muscle underneath it. The other thing that when I see my patients after I've done the body banking and after they come in big shoulders that they never had in their life and probably never would be able to get to at the gym anyway, because we're just creating something completely different. They come in and you say, hey, how you doing? And I'll say, John, you look awesome. You look just really fantastic. And they'll look at me and they'll kind of smile and kind of sniff. And they'll say, gee whiz, thanks a lot, doc. And the way they say it is as if that they earned it themselves by going to the gym. And it's never like, thanks, doc. I really appreciate what you've done. But it's the best compliment for me because it makes me realize that they don't feel like this is foreign. They feel like this is part of them. And they're so convinced that it's part of them is that they kind of a lot of times feel like they did it on themselves. Did it for themselves. And then we have some guys that they get inspired with it and then they get really into fitness and it changes their lives. They stop smoking and they say, you know what, I want to thank you for not just changing my appearance, but changing my life. And once you do that, then the tear starts to go down my eye because that's what we're in this to feed my family, feed my son. But it's more than that. You don't. It's just not a transactional thing. You want to change people's lives, and when I get that, that's what gets me really excited.
It's been tremendous hearing about your different approach, and I find it very interesting and exciting, and I thank you for sharing it with us today. If someone is interested in reaching out to you or learning more about what you're doing, where should they go?
They should go to our Instagram, which is Male Plastic Surgery, and then they can just DM us and we'll get right back to you. Or you can go to maleplasticsurgery.com, or if you're in Chicago, New York, or LA, it's maleplasticsurgerynewyork.com, maleplasticsurgerychicago.com, and guess what? maleplasticsurgeryla.com.
Thank you, Dr. Steinbrech.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eva. So nice.
If you're considering making an appointment or are on your way to meet this doctor, be sure to let them know you heard them on the Meet the Doctor podcast. Check the show notes for links, including the doctor's website and Instagram, to learn more. Are you a doctor or do you know a doctor who'd like to be on the Meet the Doctor podcast? Book your free recording session at meetthedoctorpodcast.com. Meet the Doctor is made with love in Austin, Texas, and is a production of The Axis, TheAxis.io.